No bother for Coventry. Their Easter bunny was a jackrabbit. Radoni off the bench to win it against Derby. Now, like those bloody astronauts, Middlesbrough had their own big Easter mission. But for them, Artemis is short for the art of missing loads of chances while giving away stupid goals. Millwall beat them, and then they tripped at home to Norwich, who helpfully opened the gate for their friends and neighbours, the tractor boys of Ipswich, to drive through. Southampton get the better of Arteta to make the cup semi and the heart throb. A hell of a weekend for Pierce and Shea, the Charles brothers, after what's generally been a bad year for Charles's brothers. At the bottom, Blackburn rove further clear of the drop zone as a result of the rest of the relegation battlers desperately scrapping with plenty of drama but no firm conclusions. Welcome to Not the Top 20 podcast, sponsored by Sky Bet and the Sky Bet EFL Building Foundations Fund. It's a pod that we look forward to every year. It's messy, it's fun, it's full of drama. It's the Easter weekend recap.
Hi, mate.
You've been asking for the intros to come back.
I loved it, and it was great that you didn't tell me it was happening as well. So it took me by surprise, and it was enjoyable. So thank you.
I obviously didn't listen to you when you say I think we should do this because I think it'd be better. I don't take that very seriously. But we did a survey on NTT20.com, and at least one person said they missed the intros. So thought I'd bring them back for.
But that doesn't mean that everyone who didn't say it also doesn't miss it.
Exactly. And we've got 3 episodes now compared to just the one when I used to do it. So now I have to do it for 3 leagues as well.
You're doing one for each.
And I think the quality it'll become clear which order I wrote these in the League 1 and League 2 episodes. This pod, so like for the Championship for League 1 and League 2, you know, the second round of fixtures over Easter weekend finished less than 24 hours ago. So for George and I, our job today is not to do a normal Monday pod and go through every game and tell you what happened in every game. Our job is to look at the big picture, look at the biggest stories of the weekend, and with 5, 6, 7 for some teams games to go until the end of the season, with just 1 month left of the season, to try and make head and indeed tail of it. I think these pods, George, are going to be like when you go to a film with someone, and obviously you don't talk during the film, and then after the film you spend the next half an hour going like, oh, remember when that happened? That was crazy. What did that mean? Did that mean...
How many films have you been to the cinema in your life?
2? No, loads more. Really? But as an adult, 2.
Okay.
Saltburn, one of them. And I did a lot of this after that. Do you remember that bit in the bathtub? George, do you remember?
Wow.
In the Championship automatic promotion battle, let's give a quick overview. Coventry are at the top of the table. They got 4 points from their 2 games. They beat Derby by 3-2. And then they drew 0-0 with Hull. And their 11-point gap to second became a 12-point gap to second. Middlesbrough, they were second. They only got the 1 point. It came at Swansea on Monday, having lost to Millwall. Millwall got 3 points and did go second on Good Friday after beating Borough in Borough. And then lost at home to Norwich 2-1 at the Den on Easter Monday. Ipswich only played the 1 game because they're due to play Southampton, who were in cup action, and they won it on Monday 2-1 from behind against Birmingham with some controversy that we'll get into. It leaves the league table at the top looking like Coventry on 84, Ipswich, Middlesbrough and Millwall all on 72, but crucially Ipswich have 2 games in hand. They are away at Portsmouth and away at Southampton. George, what was the big story at the top of the champ this weekend?
Well, I mean, the big game was Millwall beating Middlesbrough in the early kickoff on Good Friday, and clearly what that meant for both Middlesbrough's top 2 credentials and when they sat on the table, and what it meant for Millwall's. But then when we sit here on Tuesday, because this isn't a normal Monday pod, we're not going to go back and talk about the game in depth. Right now, the big story has to be what happened on Easter Monday, which was the Millwall being beaten at home by Norwich, opening the door for Ipswich. Ipswich walked through it by beating Birmingham City 2-1 and therefore serve it up to Middlesbrough. And Middlesbrough, yet again, who are really struggling to find a way to win games, they drew 2-2 against Swansea. So right now, what's the big story? Well, the big story is that Ipswich have put themselves firmly in the box seat to finish second. Currently in second, with a superior goal difference to Middlesbrough and to Millwall. Yes, with a difficult run of games to come, but with 2 games in hand, for which, given that they're averaging, just shy of 2 points per game over the course of the season, if you're factoring them in for, say, 3 or 4 points in these games, and that's going to put them in a really strong position. So, yeah, I'm still relatively, I wouldn't say I'm overly enamoured by the way that they're playing. Obviously, Ipswich only played once over the weekend, so it wasn't like they were the only team not to play twice, and they won their only game. There was a really contentious moment in the Birmingham game where, having been behind after a Vicente goal and Ben Johnson and Casey McAteer putting Ipswich ahead, Birmingham had an own goal disallowed for the ball going out of play. When, I'm not a big believer in the way that VAR and replays stop or claim they can basically stop the pictures when the ball is kicked, because kicking the ball is an action and it's not a freeze frame thing. But there is seemingly no point this ball is anywhere near out of play. Yeah. And the goal is chalked off. It's a huge break for Ipswich. It's obviously they could have ended up going on to win the game anyway, but the game should have been a 2-2. And then the if that had finished that way, the league table would look very different, with Ipswich currently now in 4th rather than in 2nd. So a big swing there. But yeah, the big winners for me are Ipswich, even though, for Millwall, another amazing away day, another incredible performance on the road, but consistently at home at the moment, they seem to kind of get in their own way a little bit.
Yeah, and look, Ipswich obviously had to sit and watch that Millwall Borough game on Good Friday, and it was one of the most exceptionally entertaining games of football in the Championship this season. I said on our WhatsApp group yesterday, watching Borough Swansea, that I could watch Middlesbrough games 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what I meant by that wasn't that Middlesbrough and Middlesbrough alone are entertaining to me, although that is true. I really like the way that they play. I still find it great to watch, even when they are struggling so much in front of goal, because my emotions aren't tied to Borough winning or losing. I just enjoy the fact that their games are so full of incident. Like from the first whistle against Millwall, there was something happened like every minute of the game, and basically the same against Swans on Monday. But for Borough fans right now, that is no solace whatsoever. Like what they are seeing consistently is about as frustrating as you can basically experience as a fan. Is your team doing dominating the territory and the ball, but being so profligate in front of goal, and as each game happens, it feels to me like they're getting even less composed. They're getting even more stressed in front of goal. They're taking even worse shots with more bodies between themselves and the goal. How many shots are getting blocked that Borough are taking at the moment because they're not actually creating a very high proportion of big chances. And of course, when they are, they seem to be falling to Dale Fry or Alan Brown or players that aren't necessarily that good at taking big chances. So the Millwall performance was sensational in the second half. They had the benefit of having had an international break where they didn't miss a lot of players, whereas Borough had Hackney injured, Aidan Morris and Riley McGree coming back from USA and Australia respectively only like 48 hours before the game, and therefore in the second half it wasn't a great surprise that Millwall came on strong. They're a very good counter-attacking team, ready for these kind of quite open physical battles. And then they had one against Norwich, but Norwich were the better side, and Norwich executed better than Millwall, and Norwich looked fresher than Millwall did in that game. So the funny thing is, it feels like a massive missed opportunity for Millwall sitting here that they lost at home to Norwich. This won't make Millwall fans feel any better, but Norwich are one of the, if not the best team in the league right now. They've picked up the most points in the Championship over the last 4 months. So even though their league position suggests you've lost at home to a mid-table team, like that is basically the biggest test that you can have. And that ties me on quite nicely to the fact that this Saturday, George, is Norwich hosting Ipswich at 12:30. It is such a big game for Ipswich. As you say, they're in the driving seat. But like I put it to you, that going to Ipswich, probably the toughest fixture in the league right now, right up there with Coventry away, Southampton away, for example. Oh, guess what? They've got Southampton away on the penultimate game of the season. They travel to Portsmouth next Tuesday. Now, Portsmouth obviously not in great form at the moment, but I don't think anyone, apart from QPR the other day, are beating Portsmouth with ease necessarily. I think that's going to be a tough fixture. And then they're at home to Borough on Sunday the 19th at midday. So that is a game that I'm circling for the potential for Ipswich to have a tricky couple of games at Norwich and Portsmouth. If they fail to win either of those, that game against Borough is going to be another 10 out of 10 clash. And who knows what sort of nick Borough will be in. There's every chance in their next game they take their chances and things sort of twist and turn and whatnot. It's a hell of a scrap, and Ipswich in the driving seat. Just a quick word on Coventry. Coasting now at this point. It wasn't an easy weekend for them by any means. The Derby gave it a hell of a go, and Brereton Diaz scoring twice to make it pretty to make it a really good game, but Rodoni off the bench scoring twice. Their game against Hull on Easter Monday was a real damp squib after it was the 4th televised game in a row. We'd had some absolute crackers, and then that one was pretty poor, the 0-0 draw with both teams getting into quite a lot of good opportunities in the final third, but the execution really, really poor. So they could go up this weekend, Coventry. If they win and both Millwall and Middlesbrough fail to win their games, then Coventry, I think that's right, will be promoted. If not, then they'll do it in their next game, which I think is away at Blackburn Rovers. So we'll save the Coventry eulogy for when their promotion is confirmed, which we are both very confident it will be at some point. The Championship playoff picture next. Well, Hull, they got 2 points over the Easter weekend, a 1-1 draw at Oxford, and then that 0-0 draw with Coventry. Southampton did not play a game. They beat Arsenal in the FA Cup, meaning an EFL team, a Championship team, in the semi-final of the FA Cup, playing at Wembley for the second time in a couple of seasons after Coventry did it, of course. They play Wrexham tonight, Tuesday night, and Wrexham, they got 1 point from the game they played over Easter, 2-2 draw with West Brom from 2-0 down. And then there's Derby, who got 3 points, bouncing back really well from that defeat against Coventry, where they played well and gave a good account of themselves, to beat Stoke 2-0 incredibly comfortably, with one big issue, a big Achilles injury to Patrick Agyemang, one of their key players, one of their star players, one of the best attacking players in the league over the last couple of months. So in terms of the playoff picture, you've got Hull on 68 in 5th, Wrexham on 64, 4 points back, having played a game less. Then Southampton a point below Wrexham. They've got 2 games in hand over Hull and Derby, 1 game in hand over Wrexham. They play each other tonight, of course. And then Derby also on 63, level on points with Southampton, but having played 2 games more. George, what do you think's the biggest story out of this chunk?
Well, I mean, in terms of the league, we'll get to it, but the biggest story over Easter weekend was obviously Southampton dumping out Arsenal in the FA Cup.
Joyous. Wonderful. What a performance.
Yeah, incredible performance. And it wasn't, obviously Arsenal had more of the ball and Arsenal, had a lot of territory. And I would personally say that we saw quite a special performance, well, a special talent, if not performance, in Max Downman.
Tom Fellows.
Yeah. So both of them played well, to be fair. But, Downman was pretty exciting as an England fan, watching a 16-year-old kid doing what he was doing. Albeit, Ryan Manning did quite well in terms of trying to prevent him from any damage done. But yeah, Saints were brilliant on the day. Ross Stewart led the line incredibly well. To go ahead in a cup game like that and then be pegged back, it's always going to be tough from then on. But Shea Charles came off the bench and scored a lovely finish to make it 2-1 and give Saints a very famous, upset, a cup upset against a team in Arsenal who are champions-elect in the Premier League, who are one of the favourites, if not the favourites, to win the Champions League.
Something so wonderful about having been ahead. That happens a fair bit, right? The underdog scores the first goal.
The opposition turn the screw.
And then the big dog bring on the big gun and he equalises. And there's 10 left? And ordinarily,
is Gyok the big
9
gun?
times out, I think because Rice and Saka weren't there,
right, okay.
He was the big gun to bring off the bench. He fired a bullet, 1-1. To then gather yourself and go all right, well, we don't have to just follow the status quo here. We could just go again and create more chances and take one and then see it out fairly comfortably.
But also, you say see it out. There was a moment late on in the game where they committed loads of men forward at 2-1 up, which is a refreshing way. And it's why I think, we've seen quite a few Wrexham home games go a bit mad. And I'm wondering if tonight could be one of those. I mean, there is...
Saints are just fearless.
There is another angle to this. And I'm going to mention Coventry, and I'm going to mention Coventry's FA Cup run, and that they played Manchester United in the semi-final and were beaten on penalties, and they were right on the fringe of the playoffs when it happened, going through an incredible run of form, and it completely derailed their season. And that is a slight concern in my mind, where obviously for the football club, you've got 2 very different priorities here. They play against Manchester City at Wembley in a couple of weeks' time, which is a game that of course, they're very unlikely to win, but they'll think, we just beat Arsenal. Why can't we go there and do something similar? And whether that means their eyes are taken off the ball in the league, whether it means that certain players aren't necessarily playing with the intensity they would do otherwise, not deliberately, just because they want to preserve themselves for what is an incredibly big game, whether that game against Manchester City, regardless of the result, takes loads out of them emotionally and physically, which it obviously did for Coventry when they lost, or if they win it, then they've got an FA Cup final they've got to prepare for. Not to mention also the fact that they're playing on Tuesday night, but they're going to have more games postponed, or at least one game postponed, and they're the fixture you mentioned, the run that Ipswich have got. But in terms of the consistency of how the games are coming, like at the moment, they are playing Manchester City at Wembley on Saturday, the 25th of April, and then they host Ipswich on the Tuesday night. So 3 days later. Like it's not ideal from a league point of view. I think if you're a Southampton fan and you're in the FA Cup semi-final, you're probably thinking and also for Saints fans also looking at promotion to the Premier League and what happened last time, you're probably thinking I'd take an FA Cup final and what comes after that any day over a promotion, which is hard to get that excited about given you keep getting sent back packing. But I think it does probably negatively impact their chances of getting in the top 6 and getting promotion this season. Elsewhere, Hull put in a really poor performance against Oxford on Good Friday, where Oxford had they went 1-0 up with a nice goal. Oxford equalised, and then Oxford had basically all the good chances off the back of that and came away thinking they should have won the game. And then a much better performance against Coventry, where Hull probably felt aggrieved with not being 1-0 up at half time. But it's 2 points from those games, and it certainly means that if you're Wrexham, Southampton and Derby, you are still looking at Hull and thinking you are well within our grasp here. And there's no reason why they can't chase them down. If I was a Hull fan, I'd have no idea what I'd want to happen tonight, because Southampton have the extra game in hand. Wrexham, they were closer to them. You probably think Southampton are more likely to chase them down. It's a bit of a head scratcher. I guess you probably want a draw. But it does feel like there are definitely Hull, Wrexham, Southampton, Derby, and you've got to say Norwich as well if they can beat Ipswich on Saturday, all still very much in the playoff picture.
I was going to say, what if Norwich win all 5 of their remaining games? That would take them to 73 points. Wrexham are currently 6th on 64, so they'd have to get 9 points or fewer. Obviously, Southampton would have to get 11 points or 12 points or fewer from their remaining 7. And then there's Derby as well, who are 5 points ahead of Norwich. So it's unbelievably unlikely, but most points in the league in the last 4 months. Big Phil Clement, better than Pep at this point. Like, they are an excellent team, and they'll certainly have a say, won't they, this weekend at home to Norwich. They play Derby and they play Hull before the end of the season as well. Derby, just quickly, what a fantastic performance on Monday, home to Stoke. And yes, this is a Stoke side that, even if they weren't on the beach, were a terrible team before their season was effectively over, and now really have very little about them. Even so, Derby will have got a lot of confidence from the ease with which they created chances, creating chances for different players in different ways. Obviously, the knock, both literally but also potentially like emotionally, that Adjumang's injury will have on them is something that they're going to have to overcome. Carlton Morris is obviously back and looking good, and I suppose in the context of Adjumang's injury, the fact that it was Jayden Burnell who came off the bench for him and then scored a nice goal, good take inside the penalty box, is a positive as well. So they are certainly a big part of this conversation, but lots of work to do, and obviously they don't play tonight. One of Wrexham, Southampton, or both will pick up points to extend their gap over Derby. When it comes to the middle of the table, we've got Norwich on 58, so they're 6 points back. Watford 57, Bristol City 57, who obviously won both games over Easter weekend. Roy Hodgson, masterclass at 78.
Imagine if they just win every game under Roy.
Yeah.
What happens then?
Well, what will the fans feel then? Will they be like, oh, right, maybe Struber wasn't great and maybe Hodgson's a genius, maybe that was a great appointment? Or is it...
And given that 2 of their games are against Norwich and Saints, I mean, what would happen? How many stats? 5, another 15 points?
72.
Fair
Hello.
chance. Yeah.
What if Bristol City win their last 7 games of the season is a hell of a conversation for us to be having after last Monday's analysis of the Roy Hodgson appointment.
5 games.
But they've won their last 2, so it would be 7.
Yes.
If that
it would
transpires.
You saying we'd have egg on our face?
Yeah. QPR, they were on the beach. Turns out they like the beach very much. Messi, Buku, Julian Stefan. 3 wins and a draw in their last 4. A win and a draw over Easter weekend. Stoke beat Sheffield Wednesday and then lost, as we know. Preston drew both their games. Swansea drew both their games. Birmingham are 16th now. They lost both of their games. Birmingham are 16th. And Sheffield United drew 1 and lost 1. They're in 17th. So I think it's fair to say that we're focused on the promotion picture and the relegation battle from here on in. But there's a very busy beach right now.
Yeah.
Of about...
It's absolutely rammed.
9... There's 9 teams on the beach.
Busy beach doesn't really make me want to go on holiday, especially during this lovely weather we're experiencing this week in the
wave,
UK.
baby.
But Ali, we used to ban each other from taking holidays during the football season just because it was too difficult to keep up to date with the leagues. But that's all changed with NordVPN.
Yeah, I thought that watching sports when abroad was a big issue, but it no longer is. And that's because of NordVPN. When I went to Spain, for example, at the turn of the new year, I didn't miss a single kick of football. Live stuff, highlights, all of it. With NordVPN, you can switch your location from anywhere in the world in order to access the content that you pay for and enjoy at home. I use it for a number of things. I use it to book flights as well to avoid price discrimination. It's really easy to use. NordVPN, one of the fastest VPNs out there. Great for cybersecurity as well. It's just a great and important addition to modern life.
And we've got an exclusive discount for NTT20 listeners, a discounted price and 4 extra months for free by heading to nordvpn.com/NTT20. That's nordvpn.com/NTT20.
The Championship relegation battle, hell of a thing, really. On Monday, the bottom 6 all played against another bottom 6er, and they all drew. But there's plenty within it. Sheffield Wednesday, 1 point this weekend, lost to Stoke, drew with Leicester. Oxford United, 2 points, drew with Hull, drew with Portsmouth, 1-1 in both. Leicester, 2 points, 2-2 draw with Preston, 1-1 draw with Sheffield Wednesday. Portsmouth, 2 points, 1-1 draw with Norwich, 1-1 draw with Oxford. West Brom, 2 points, 2-2 draw with Wrexham, 0-0 draw with Blackburn. Blackburn, 4 points, a 1-0 win at Birmingham, and then that draw with West Brom. What's the big story there?
Draws.
Draws.
No, I think the big story has to be Blackburn winning this mini league, probably, and basically forcing themselves not out of it yet.
6 points above
6 points above it. So it's not done, but finding the means by which to get past Birmingham away was impressive. A very nice Todd Cantwell goal, and then just that classic. A win would have been huge for both teams in Blackburn West Brom. It felt like a first half that West Brom edged, and as that time just ticked towards 90, both teams were like, you know what, let's just not make a mess of this.
Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, would it? Yeah, incredible save from Toth, the Blackburn keeper.
Unbelievable save.
That is insanely good.
Having seen Oxford and Portsmouth draw in the early kickoff, so let's talk about the 4 teams involved in the other games, because I've mentioned a few times on these shows that I'm convinced that Wednesday will have a part to play in other teams' fate. And if you look at this season, they've won or drawn. They've won 1 game, they've drawn 10. So 11 of their 41 games so far haven't ended in defeat. And the way people talk about them, it's as if it's just a given that whoever plays against them is going to lose. But they win or draw. They take points off the opposition in a quarter of their games. So it is natural that they are going to take points off some teams. And with 5 games to go, they're probably going to do it again. And Leicester were the team who paid the price for it. This is a disaster for Leicester. For Leicester to be watching the Oxford-Pompey game, for the dream result to happen, both teams dropping 2 points effectively, both teams pick up a solitary point, giving Leicester the opportunity to make the most of playing the 24th team in the league away from home and push themselves 2 points, basically gain 2 points on both of the teams they're against. And to fail was disastrous. Should say, they dominated the game, as you would expect them to when they were 1-0 down after 2 minutes, but going 1-0 down after 2 minutes in itself was a terrible start. Jerry Yates, who's had a really good loan spell at Wednesday, I think is certainly going to be showing teams at the bottom end of the Championship for next season. Yeah, I'm a player that can play in a team that don't create much and still score goals and lead the line with a lot of energy. But the main man here and the main person to talk about was Piers Charles, who made one of my biggest pet hates in the whole of football in this social media age is when opposition fans love discrediting keepers. It really, really annoys me.
What sort of thing do they say?
He had an all right game, but it was just our rubbish strikers.
Right.
And it's just
both can be true.
Yeah, but this wasn't
What's
true.
definitely true
is
that his 11 saves is the most saves by a goalkeeper in the Championship this season, equaling his 11 saves against Leicester on opening weekend.
So
how good is that?
Yeah,
22 saves he's made against them.
And yeah, sure, some of them are bad finishes, but he also made some decent saves. Should say that Jordan Ayew came on and changed the game in Leicester's favour. He was really good. He came close a couple of times and then scored with a brilliant finish from the edge of the area into the bottom right-hand corner. We don't really see it enough from him, given that his evident talent and what he's done previously in his career. As is the case with so many Leicester players, he should be better than he is. And this group of players collectively shouldn't be as bad as they are, but they absolutely are. So for Leicester to not win was a huge opportunity missed for them. Both Portsmouth and Oxford will feel like it was an opportunity missed for them too, because Pompey were by far the better team for the first 20 minutes. They took the lead through a really nice Keshe Anderson goal. Just a beautiful first touch and nice finish. Before Connor Ogilvie was sent off for a foul that, if you're a Portsmouth fan, it's an absolute disgrace. If you're an Oxford fan, it's a clear red. If you're a neutral, you probably either think it was, maybe a red, or probably just a yellow. You know, it's one of them. I personally think that it probably should have been, or normally would be, a yellow, but I don't think he's trying to tackle Stan Mills. I think he's trying to wipe out Stan Mills from behind, and the referees made a decision that it was cynical enough and, met the excessive force marker in order to give it a red, and that changed the game. Having said that, Pompey were still the better side in the first half and looked more likely until half time. Matt Bloomfield changed the shape, went to a 3 at the back, played Stan Mills at right wing back, who was just unbelievably good again. Like, I really feel like Mills is a top end championship winger, and whoever, I'm sure Oxford will want quite a lot of money for him, but if someone was to sign him in the summer, I wouldn't be blinded by the lack of goals and assists. I think it's 3 of each this season. He is a top direct winger for the level, and he's proving it consistently now, and versatile too, because he can either play as a high right winger or as a right wing back. He carried the ball from midfield, had a left-footed shot that was parried by Schmidt into the path of Spencer, made it 1-1. Will Lancashire then headed home from a Michael Helik, incredible bit of hold-up play and cross from Helik, and then cross with his left foot.
You thought you had one of the biggest wins.
Yeah, which would have been huge.
And you didn't.
No, Millie Ali came off the bench, second face from a set piece, got to the byline, a really nice cutback to Andre Dozel, who slotted it to the bottom right-hand corner. Having mentioned the Ogilvie thing, for Portsmouth's fans' sake, I should say that Brodie Spencer was lucky not to be shown a second yellow for a trip. One of those where once the referee gave the foul, you could argue that Devlin was inviting contact. Once the foul is given, I cannot understand how he didn't give a second yellow. So Pompey fans frustrated with the referee. Oxford fans frustrated with themselves for not holding on to a lead. It's a point that is not great for either team, but at the same time not a disaster. But both teams will probably feel like, had things gone their way, they could have made it 3 points. But with the Sheffield Wednesday result going both teams' ways, not the end of the world either.
Such a weird weekend for this group of teams when you consider that none of them lost a game. Oxford, Leicester, Portsmouth, West Brom, Blackburn did not lose, but only Blackburn won a game. Very peculiar. It means that it's more or less as you were. Oxford on 41, Leicester on 41, Portsmouth on 42, but having played a game less. That is a game in hand they have at home to Ipswich next Tuesday. Then West Brom are 3 points above them, and Blackburn a further 2 points above that. This is no solace to you or to anyone involved, but it's quite a high-level championship relegation battle. Like, the points tally is probably going to be all right, decent. Could probably be over 1 PPG, which is not always the case in any EFL relegation battle. But also, like, Blackburn over the course of the season, like, haven't been particularly bad. I don't think they've had a few really bad runs, but if you take Blackburn at their best this season, quite a good team, I'd say. West Brom, the last couple of weeks, well, they're unbeaten in, is it 6? They've looked pretty good. First half of the season, certainly put in some very good performances. Portsmouth had a run quite recently where they looked really, really, really good. They've obviously had the quite opposite to that as well. Leicester, well, obviously a very, very poor team, in particular relative to the level of individual talent that they have and the fact they were in the Premier League last season. But let's not get away from the fact that they wouldn't be in the bottom 3 if it were not for the points deduction. And then Oxford, who, 41 points from 41 games. It hasn't been a horrendous season for Oxford. You haven't been a terrible team. I kind of feel like I can't even remember many times you've been like blown away or battered or like, even when you've been second best.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you make it. You're not easy to beat, I wouldn't say.
There was a record on the row at how we only lost games by solitary goals.
Right.
When you're hanging your hat on that, it's probably not. It's
sure.
not the best. But yeah, no, I do agree.
I'm trying to paint an overall picture.
Yeah.
which again provides no solace to anyone who's in the midst of a relegation battle. But from my outside point of view, I honestly think like it's a sort of high quality relegation battle, if that makes sense. West Brom throwing away a 2-goal lead against Wrexham on Good Friday will have stung for sure. Okay, so that's the snapshot post Easter weekend. Let's see what happens. We've got a massive game tonight, Wrexham Southampton. On Friday, it's West Brom Millwall, huge for both, obviously. On Saturday at 12:30, it's Norwich Ipswich. There's also Borough versus Portsmouth, just a monstrous game for both sides, and Southampton against Derby as well, which is currently 7th versus 8th, but could be 6th versus 8th come Saturday. So massive weekend ahead. We've done our best to catch you up on everything that happened over the Easter weekend. Thanks for listening and go well.